Hello and welcome to episode 8 of the OMC Video Blog. My name is Garv and I am the host of this show, and today we're going to get into something interesting, something I've been thinking about for a while, like as to what to talk about. I thought maybe since we do a lot of, what's game development and writing and all that stuff, and so let's get into that. Like, if I want to do this, let's say you're watching this video and you're thinking, you know what, I want to try that. I want to see if I can do it. What do you need to do in order to get to that point? So today we're going to focus on what steps you need to take if you want to make video games. Now, I can go into, there's so many different little pieces that all fit together that can help you get to your goal, but I think it's probably best to start at the beginning. So before we do that, let me just start with my own journey into game development. Truth of the matter is, my original days of learning how to code were way back in the 80s. My first real computer was this. It is an Atari 800XL. This is my original computer. This is the one I started with back in the 80s. It still works, which is crazy. But I started programming on that. Now, I took some stuff in school back in the 80s. Back then, when I was in elementary school and junior high school and stuff. Back then, everything was new. And we started learning in school on TI 99.4As, which if you don't know what that is, I'll put a pic so you can see what it looks like. Those were, what we started with. We started with BASIC. Back then, BASIC was what a lot of people wrote things in. Games and programs and stuff. You really didn't have many choices. You had BASIC, you had Fortran, you had assembly, that kind of stuff. I started with BASIC because I got an old Atari manual of BASIC, and I just basically just trained by typing in all the stuff, trying things like, print something on a screen. Back then, I don't think there was a hello world, but this is the equivalent. Hello, print on the screen, kind of stuff. And that was my beginning. I actually wrote a game back then, and I submitted it to Electronic Arts. This must have been 85, I think. I submitted it to Electronic Arts. I felt extremely proud of what I did. It was a fairly complicated game, but I submitted it, and I never heard back from EA. Now, back then I was young. I don't know what would have happened if they actually would have accepted my game. It was mostly text-based, but it was a text-based adventure with some little graphic-y things. It was extremely complicated. I wrote this. Back then, I had a lot more time, so I wrote this crazy system based off of Lord British's Ultima series. Like, that was my inspiration at the time. Like, I wanted to do something like that, and so I took a lot of inspiration. At some point, I started learning assembly language. I think it was the Atari ASM cartridge and stuff, and I got into that, and I started learning assembly. And 6502 assembly is simple, but back then it's all you had, so you did everything that way. It was fun. It was fun. I'm not gonna lie. I had a whole lot of fun just experimenting and playing with stuff. After that, I was just meandering. I didn't have enough money to get an Amiga or an Atari ST, so I couldn't continue on with what I was doing at that time. I couldn't afford a PC. We were poor. The fact I even had an Atari was an amazing feat back then. But I couldn't keep up with the way technology changed constantly, so I just couldn't afford it. I was a kid, and then moms couldn't afford it, so we just couldn't afford it. So I couldn't get an ST. I couldn't get an Amiga, and so I just had to. There's like a gap in there where I just didn't really do anything during that time. At some point, though, PCs start to be a little more available, so I decided to get into that, and so I did. I got into PC development. I went to college and did all that stuff, and the goal was I want to make video games, and I wrote I don't know how many different game ideas and how the code was going to work and all that stuff. Like, I have notes and notes and notes and notes and notes of stuff over the years where I couldn't really do any programming. I have all these notes about things that I wanted to do. And back then, we didn't have engines, and there weren't all these things. If you wanted to do something, you had to do it from scratch. There was no Unity or Unreal or any of that back then. And so, if you wanted to write something, you had to do it all from the beginning. It was a lot of work. At some point, I got the ability to become an Atari Jaguar developer. At the time, I was so happy. Like my little company, like OMC Games, we were going to make Jaguar games. Yay, make Jaguar games, yay. But maybe a year later, Atari went out of business. The game I was working on back then was called The Assassin. And, I was green, man. I'm not going to lie, I was totally green. Because I hadn't really done a whole lot of game development that time. And so to make a long story short, I spent a lot of time basically learning the new ways of object-oriented programming and how code was written at that time. Even though the Atari Jaguar stuff was not written in C, it was actually written in assembly. Those NDAs, I'm sure, don't exist anymore, so I'm pretty sure I could get into that. But anyway, all the code was basically written in assembly, and they didn't have engines and stuff. You had to do everything from scratch. So my little game, I had, tough time getting things. But the other thing that I had to learn back then, and this is why a lot of my original things didn't get off the ground, there were two key points. The first one being that if you're going to pick an idea, you pick it and you go. I know, as you're going down the path, you're like, oh, that sounds great. Maybe I want to do that. And you jump off that train that you're on and you jump on this new train. And you're on that new train for a while, and then at some point you're like, ooh, wouldn't it be great if I did X? And so you jump off that train and you jump on a new one. And so you're just constantly jumping off, from project to project to project to project. And so you never get anything done. That was my biggest issue, is that instead of picking that one thing that I was going to work on, I would start working on that and go, man, wouldn't it be cool if I did something else? And so I jumped off of that onto something else, and I just kept jumping. And so I could never get anything finished. I couldn't stay focused on an idea long enough to get anything done. And so, I feel really bad about that, because, there are people who really expected me to get things done back then. And actually, if I would have stuck to one idea, probably could have. I'm pretty sure we would have finished something. But I didn't, because I was just constantly jumping. But I thought it was just me. But having talked to a lot of game developers, it's not just me, it's just a game development thing. Like, as you're working on something, there's always that grass is greener on the other side, because making games takes a long time. It takes a whole lot of time. The second thing was that I didn't want to spend a lot of time researching the things that I needed to research. Game development requires a lot of research and understanding and all that, and we just didn't have the tools for it back then, or we did kind of. Like I bought a bunch of books on game development and stuff, and there was a guy, and I can't think of his name right now, who wrote a bunch of game development books, and I have quite a few of them. Me and a few buddies, I had quite a few of them, but looking back, I didn't study them as well as I should have. And those are two big problems to run into. And so, after that, I got jobs working at game companies, Nintendo and NCSoft and stuff like that. And so, I have a lot more under my belt now, and I understand things a whole lot better than I did back then. But more than that, engines, you got Unity, you got Unreal, all these engines that you have now that you can do stuff in. And being able to understand your project and what you're trying to do and how you can get there, extremely important. So anyway, that's my humble journey, led me to where I am now. I feel like I understand things a lot better than I did back then. And understanding that game development takes a whole lot of time. It's not quick and easy unless you're making, some really simple thing. But if you're doing anything with any real substance, then, you're going to be putting a lot of time in. And that's just how game development works. And getting into that understanding is extremely important. So next, once you decide, you're sitting there, you're thinking, okay, I want to do something, game development, writing, whatever. The first thing that you need to do is you need to decide what your discipline is going to be. Programming, if you're going to go programming, you're going to go art, you're going to go level design, you're going to go writing, decide, like directing, like what do you want to do? Like, what's your thing? And then I know that seems like such a simple thing, but I've met a lot of people who jump around. Again, jumping around, like they want to do level design. Then they're like, no, I want to do directing. Like, no, I want to do this. And so there's a lot of jumping around. And there's nothing wrong with being the jack of all trades, master of none. Like when I was young, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be the jack of all trades. I wanted to do everything. I want to do art. I want to do directing. I want to do programming. I want to do it all, like everything. I want to do it all. But there aren't enough hours in the day to actually do that. And you need practice. And so you need practice to be able to do all those things. And if you want to be good at what you're doing, then it's best to choose one thing that you want to do and focus on that. Just do that. Whether it's writing, level design, or art, level art, or whatever it is that you decide that you want to do. Then once you decide like where you want to go, like I'm going to do art, programming, or whatever. Once you decide that, once you've made that choice, then I think at that point it depends on what you're trying to do. If you're going to do programming, like that's your thing, like you want to do programming, then I would recommend at that point choosing an engine. It doesn't even matter what engine you choose. Whether you go Unity, whether you go Unreal, whether you go GameMaker, whatever it is that you want to do, choose an engine. Choose a script or language, C++ or C# or JavaScript or whatever. Like you want to do web development or web apps or web things, then learn those things. Those things will help you, and choose the platform that you want to do your thing on, and then get into that. And there are lots of options, especially these days. I mean, back when I started, that we didn't have options. You just did everything from scratch. Now you've got so many, kits to use and so many game engines to use and so many things to use that it's just so easy. I mean, hell, even if you want to write your own books, it's so easy now. Like, you can self-publish. You don't need to go to Tor Books or whatever. You can just do it yourself. Amazon will allow you to do it. You can sign up with their KDP and the Kindle Development Program or Distributing Program. I can't remember what that means, what that stands for. But anyway, you can do that and self-publish. You can publish on the Apple Bookstore. You can publish by using Smashwords, which is what I use. And they'll help you get into places like, Kindle Books and stuff like that. And so, you don't really need to these days, you'll spend probably more of your time trying to market your stuff and all that than you will the writing and stuff. You're going to spend a lot of time on that. But you when you get into this, you want to remember one thing. No matter what discipline you choose, YouTube and Google and that kind of thing, the search engines, those things are your friend. I was talking to a guy that was saying that he wanted to know everything, and knowing everything is good. I mean, if you have the capacity to do that, then go for it. But I'm here to tell you that, I spend tons of time working on, how do I say, I spend tons of time working on searching and researching and watching videos and all kinds of stuff, because there's so much stuff out there. And sometimes even the simple case of, I just want to draw a line that goes across the screen, like, there are a million ways to do that. And so, you're always looking at, well, what's the most effective way? And what did this guy do? And what did that guy do? What did that guy do? And so you're always jumping around trying to find out what the best way to do things is. And even if you're just writing, let's say you want to write things, then you're going to read other people's stuff. You're going to read about how people plot and how people lay out their stories and stuff like that. And if you want to do level design, then you want to watch some videos on level design and how people lay their levels out, whether they're 2D or 3D. And then you want to look at the thought process as to why they do that. Because whenever you create things, it's not just about creating things. There's always a psychology to it. You're trying to get the reader or the player or whoever's viewing your movie or book or whatever, you want them to you want to give them a certain emotion. Like, that's the thing that you want them to get. So you got to think, well, how can I manipulate people to do the thing that I want them to do? I know that sounds terrible, but the thing is, books, stories, games, all those things are all manipulating people's desire to know more, or their desire to continue reading, watching, whatever it is. You're trying to give them the feels, right? And so that takes time, and that takes effort, and that takes something. And so you spend a lot of time researching and reading other people's stuff and talking to other people. Don't feel bad. Like, if you feel like you don't know something and you want to know that thing, and you feel like, ooh, I should really know that, hey, don't feel bad about that. You get people who work at big old companies who do the exact same thing. Why? Because it's always changing. You can't know everything. And therefore, other people can inspire you to make something better. And so the goal should always be make something better, but also to hone your craft. Therefore, you want to practice. That is the thing that you're going to do the most. You're going to screw up a lot. You're going to make some stuff that's totally janky and crappy, but that does not matter. Because what you're trying to do is to gain that experience so that you can make something better. Whether you write a shitty story, whether you make a crappy level, whether you make a crappy game. The thing is, you should always strive to be better. And the resources are out there. Don't feel bad. Like, I know some people don't want to ask questions and they don't want to feel like they don't know. But you know what? Hey, people are your resource, man. Get out there and use them. That's why we make these videos, so that you guys can watch them and go, whoa, that's something I hadn't thought of. Now I want to try that. Or that's an area that I hadn't, my brain just didn't go there. And so now I can use that in my own work. And I just think that you just shouldn't feel bad about that. And remember, you're always learning, always. Like, even when you're just sitting down and you're reading the newspaper, you're always gathering more information and you're always learning. And, even if you are, let's say you want to be a level designer and you're playing somebody else's game, you just happen to be sitting around playing Mario Brothers or whatever. Those ideas are always coming to you. You're always learning something new, and there's nothing wrong with that. Matter of fact, that's the way you should go. Like I had talked about how I had a lot of issue with my combat system and all that. And I wanted to do it a certain way. Like, I was focused, like laser focused. That's how I wanted to do it. But you know what? Like, I researched and I watched videos and I talked to people and I did all kinds of stuff. And, I have no shame. Basically, I screwed it up. And now I feel like I have something better. And so, yeah, don't worry about any of that stuff. Research, practice, research and practice and practice and practice and practice and practice and talk. Those are things that are going to get you where you want to go. Like, those things are the things that you need in order to be good at what you're doing. Now, whether your goal is to work for a company, let's say you want to work on The Last of Us or something, like you want to work on that, honing your skills is much more important to getting the job there. They're going to look at what you've done, and that's going to be your card, making your portfolio. What did you write about? What did you do? And those are the things that are going to get people to look at you and see what you're doing. Sometimes, it takes some work to get there, but that doesn't mean that you can't get there. It just takes practice and time. So anyway, that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about. I hope that you can gain something out of this. Not everything works 100% for everybody, but I can guarantee you that research and practice are always going to be staples as to how you go about getting into the business. Deciding what engine you're going to use and then researching that and practicing. Deciding what software you're going to use and researching that and practicing. Whether if you're going to go art, then learning Photoshop. If you want to go 3D modeling, then learning something like Blender or Maya or something like that is going to help you get better. Those things are going to help you improve. But like I said, don't worry about it. We don't know everything. You will never know everything. And so therefore, take the time to practice and learn and just absorb as much as you can. And that will help you get to where you want to be. And, be also thankful that you have those resources now. We didn't have those resources back then. So having the resources to research and talk and meet people, you can talk to people in the business. Twitter is your friend. A lot of them will totally help you out. And so anyway, that's kind of where I wanted to go. But thanks for watching. I appreciate you watching. And if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. And remember to like and subscribe to the video and ring the notification bell so that way you know when new content comes out. So that's going to wrap it up for me. I want you guys to have a great day and a great week. And I'll see you guys next time. Oh, and if you're getting into whatever, drop me a line. If you have questions, feel free to drop. I mean, I don't know a whole lot, but about some things. But, hey, I can always direct you to somebody who does, or maybe give some insight on how that works. Anyway, you guys have a great day, and we'll see you next time. Peace.